Hi everyone, my name is Phil Hansen. If you're putting together a virtual event, well, I want to share with you what a virtual presentation from the studio here would look like. So everything you're about to see is edited real time in this moment. There's absolutely no post-production, and it's exactly as you would see it in your show. So welcome to the studio. All right, well, why don't you give yourself a quick little glance around, and I'll share what this big kind of crazy weird project is. All these 4 big pictures is actually part of a series that I'm doing where I'm recreating human facial expressions. And this one is happily disgusted. And the reason that I share the studio space with you is because, well, I'm an artist, but actually being an artist today is not something that I thought would happen. Because many years ago, I was diagnosed with permanent nerve damage in my drawing hand, and I have a tremor. And as I was in the doctor's office, the doctor told me to embrace the shake. And I remember hearing that advice, and it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted a solution. I wanted an answer to my problem. But as I was heading home, I was thinking about what it would mean to embrace the shake, and I was like, well, maybe I could find a way to visualize it. So I put a piece of paper on the wall, I grabbed a pencil, and I just started letting my hand shake, and I started making a bunch of scribble pictures. And as I began to, as the doctor called it, embrace the shake, what I was really doing, of course, was I was embracing my limitation. And once I embraced my limitation, I found that, well, that was an interesting place for my creativity. It was within the box, not outside the box. And when I thought about it, that's really where I wanted my creativity, was within the confines of my life. And when I thought about it further, I was like, maybe I could push my creativity by creating boundaries for myself. Like, what would happen with my creativity within very, very small little confines? And that got me interested. And so I went off and I did a bunch of different art projects, a bit of a quest to get creative within ever smaller constraints. And one of the ideas I came up with was maybe there was a way that I could actually walk into the garage and just create with something that I could find there. And my garage wasn't a full wood, studio kind of space. It was very just minimal. And I actually found an old car battery and some wires. And so I linked them all together and then was able to create sparks by slapping the wires together. And then I used those sparks to burn the paper to make a picture of Nikola Tesla. And what I was doing is not just embracing my own challenge, my own limitation, but now I had pushed further and I had found that limitations could drive creativity. And that's where I hit this kind of intriguing place, because that was where I began to transform my life and kind of finding the secrets to being able to transform ultimately our world. And I know that transforming our world, it's a big phrase. It's a big thing. It's this big, crazy, lofty idea that's out there. But what I found is that through being systematic about our creativity and getting flexible with our beliefs, we can get there. We can transform our world. And so that's really the 3 portions that I'll be breaking my presentation time into. The first is sharing my story with everybody, sharing how I overcame this limitation, how I found creativity within boundaries. And then the second part is systematic creativity. And I'll actually be leading everybody through an exercise to use this process of being systematic to come up with a cartoon idea. And that's actually the challenge, to be a cartoonist for a brief moment. And it's an interesting challenge because, of course, none of us are probably cartoonists. And it's a great place to start, though, because it kind of removes you from other challenges. We all of a sudden we're cartoonists and we can kind of forget about other challenges. And so what this process looks like is we take what's in front of us, we break it down, and we find all these different bits and pieces, and we begin to reconnect these and recombine these to come up with a new cartoon idea. And as everybody's at home doing their drawing, what then I begin to do is I begin to explain how you can use this same process to get creative with a financial shortfall, or a shift in a customer base, or actually having to completely reimagine or rework a product or an offering. And when we do it systematically, the reason for doing this that's so important is that in our society, we end up talking so much about creativity being about the aha moment, the light bulb idea, the point of just genius and brilliance. And yet, when you look at a lot of creative types, they're actually very deliberate about the process. And there's a lot to learn there, because what that process does is it actually removes a lot of the pressures of creativity. It means you don't have to come up with a brilliant idea in that moment. You can take an idea that already exists and you can rework it and reimagine it. And that's where, of course, innovative and disruptive ideas come from. So that's the second portion of my presentation. And then the third is kind of sharing with people what happened after, well, of course, my personal story of overcoming adversity. And then when that story, I was able to actually share at TED. And that was kind of this beautiful, wonderful experience. But what it meant is that immediately after sharing that story, is people began to ask me how to overcome their own limitations, their challenges. And that sent me on this big kind of wild journey to try to find the answer. You know, why is it that sometimes we overcome limitations more quickly and other times we kind of get stuck? And what I found there is that basically every single challenge that we are confronted with is composed of two parts. You know, the challenge is that big umbrella word that we use. But underneath it is the limitation. That's the thing that gets all the attention, the constraint. But then the other parts, that is our perspective. And when our perspective gets in the way, well, I don't want to use the word perspective anymore because it's a belief. You know, a perspective is a belief, and what I call that other portion is a self-limiting belief. So you have the limitation combined with a self-limiting belief. Those two things together create the challenge. And if we can get systematically creative with our limitation and then get adaptable and allow our beliefs to be malleable, those two things combined together, that is where we can transform challenges, where we can transform our lives, and we can get there to transforming our world. Those disruptive ideas have a way of transforming everything. And so if you'd like to jump on a call, you know, I'd love to hear more about your group, challenges that might be facing, and of course then to share how I can bring together messaging and themes within my presentation, tying everything together, leaving people with an experience that, you know, systematic creativity. It can change a lot. So I will sit here in my piece of what I call anti-social furniture, and I will isolate myself. So reach out. I'd be delighted to chat with you and be part of your virtual events. All right, take care.